right, guys, I am joined one of my good friends in the game, one of the best out there, legend, pioneer, best Substack, morning combat, live chat, you know it all. LT, welcome back to Submission Radio, man. I hear you're not a big fan of the Celtics.
Fuck the Celtics. Fuck the
Why?
Celtics. Fuck their fans.
Why?
Fuck Boston. Fuck them all. Every last one of them. Yeah. I hate the Celtics.
Celtic fans are better than Laker fans. Come on.
Well, Laker fans are... I mean, that's the bottom of the barrel. I mean, what are we talking about there? You know, Celtics fans are loyal, but they're also wildly racist and terrible people. So,
hey, by the way, you go for the Washington Wizards. What can you say?
Oh, they're so fucking miserable, dude.
What is it? What are you guys called now? I don't even know what your team's called anymore.
Losers. Losers. That's what we're called. Perpetually on vacation when the you know what I mean? Like anytime the offseason starts. Terrible. And did you see the goddamn draft? I mean, it's one thing for the, listen, I can respect the Celtics. Huh? I can respect the Celtics. They're good, right? You know, they're good. They're good. It's a good team. And what's his name? Not Jason Tatum. He got injured, but the other guy who plays for him, I forget the name. Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart,
yeah.
Yeah. He went to my neighboring high school. Actually,
oh, no way.
Yeah, he went to Wheeler High School. I went to Marietta High School. They're like a mile or two apart. So
did you guys bowl together or anything like that? Or
no, nothing like that. But what I was going to point out was the effing NBA lottery. You know, listen, man, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but holy shit, you gave away Luka in a secret trade. He didn't even bid on the open market. You sent him to the #1 NBA market in the country while LeBron is on his last legs. And it just so happens that generational talent comes around with a 1.8% chance of winning. And they get it. And by the way, not for nothing, they got Wemby on the Spurs and they get the second pick. Meanwhile, here in DC and then in Charlotte and the Hornets, we're just left fucking starving on the outside. So you know what? Fuck all the good teams because we can't be one of them and it drives me nuts.
Did you ever go to a Jordan game?
As a Wizard. As a Wizard, but not like...
What was that like? Was that cool?
No, it was. I think it was his last season and I think I was drunk at the time. So... I don't have very clear memory.
Listen, we're looking at a JDM Islam Makhachev fight. How are we feeling about this thing coming together?
Feel great. I mean, not every part of it, I think, is super fulfilling for a couple of reasons. One of the things that I like about matchmaking sometimes is the element of surprise. There wasn't any. This was widely telegraphed. You know, again, we didn't know if it was going to be X or Y, but we knew that those were the two choices, right? Islam versus Ilia, or Islam versus the winner, and then or JDM. So that came into we knew what to kind of expect, and then we got one of the ones we were expecting. So in that sense, the lack of surprise, somewhat, I'm not going to say diminishes it, but I guess doesn't lift it. Maybe is a better word. And then the other one is, listen, there are trade-offs here. And I think we should be honest about those trade-offs. The trade-off is, for all the good you might get with Islam at 170, which is not just that by itself is a big deal. He could get a second weight class title, pound for pound #1 guy in the sport moving up. He might stay at 170 for maybe 2, 3, 4 fights. I don't know exactly how much longer he's got, but not a lot. But maybe, let's just say more than one. At a time when welterweight is all of a sudden becoming very hot. This is awesome. This is awesome. But the trade-off, in addition to the fact there was no surprise, is that probably the single best fight you could make, and maybe arguably even the biggest, although John and Tom probably has a bit of a conversation there, but certainly one of the biggest would be #1 versus #2 pound for pound, so Islam versus Ilia. You do lose that, or at a bare minimum, that's not going to happen next. I guess there's a world where he could go back to 55 and potentially make that. That seems unlikely, at least for now, but couldn't rule it out, I suppose. So the trade-off is you didn't quite get it delivered to you in a way that yielded maximum excitement, and you do lose the single best fight. But this is my point about getting multiple fights at 170. If you're Islam, I think folks are really kind of sleeping on, for all of the criticisms about who Islam fought, a bunch of former 145ers. Now, these are guys who, when Islam fought them, for example, Dustin Poirier could never have made 45 if their life depended on it. And I think Moicano's probably in a similar place as well, among others. Going up to 70 by itself is exciting, but kind of answering for the fact that there's this kind of quiet suggestion that Islam has been fighting maybe guys who weren't the right ones or blown up a little bit, or, some kind of way to diminish their standing as a top 155er and a natural top 155er. The 70 equation erases all of it. So I recognize, to wrap this all up, I recognize that there are trade-offs, and those trade-offs are important. But at the same time, I absolutely believe this is a net positive overall, and I'm pretty thrilled about it.
So do you feel that Ilia Islam is the better matchup over JDM Islam? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, well, listen, I don't want to disrespect JDM. I thought he would win, or at least I had a slight, we were kind of flipping a coin, and I went with JDM. But I definitely thought that fight could have been interesting, because I did think he was going to give Bilal a bit of a tough time, and he actually did even better than that. He did really, really well. I don't want to diminish him by any stretch of the imagination, dude. He deserves his praise. Shouts to JDM. He's doing great work. At the same time, dude, Topuria is number 2 pound for pound, or should be, I think. I'm not exactly sure where he sits relative to John Jones, but, he should be. Like, you're talking about dude, when a pound for pound guy fights a pound for pound guy, I'm sorry, that's different. It's different. It's different. Part of the reason why Spence versus Crawford was such a big deal was it was pound for pound versus pound for pound, right? And part of the reason that Bud blew up after that fight in the way that he did was because of those stakes, and because of the nature of how dominant the victory was against another pound for pound guy. Dude, that's big. That's big. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. So, could you say ultimately that fight would be as good or better than what you might get with JDM and Islam? No, you could not say that. How could we possibly know? But I think on paper, looking at it and saying, well, these guys are basically, in my judgment, the top 2 pound for pound guys in the sport, putting them together is a very big deal and would probably yield a very memorable occasion. Yeah.
I think I'm geographically impacted, but who do you think is the tougher challenge for Islam out of Ilia and JDM?
I don't know, man. I
feel like it's JDM for some reason. I don't know, but you tell me.
I could be talked into it. Absolutely. It's not a question I've thought about directly, because, you're dealing with a different thing, right? I mean, dude, Islam getting basically a 15-point spot, or 15-pound spot, I should say, excuse me, to go up, it's going to make him a little bit different. Like, if you guys have never seen it, right in the middle of his run, when Matt Hughes was champion, he took a fight at a catch weight up like 5 or 10 pounds. I forget exactly. I think it was, it was like a 75-pound catch weight with Royce Gracie. And I remember thinking, what is 5 pounds? That doesn't mean anything. Guy fights at 70, now he's at 75. And then Matt Hughes came to the weigh-ins and was absolutely fucking yoked. And I was like, oh, Royce Gracie's in trouble. You know what I mean? And sure enough, he absolutely bludgeoned him. And I was like, this is, so early in my watching fights and piecing how everything works together. I didn't realize what a big difference it was. It was huge. We're going to spot this guy 15 pounds. You're just going to get a different Islam there. At the same time, I can respect that what JDM can do might be very, very difficult for the particular style that Islam presents in ways that Ilia couldn't. But at the same time, he might be more susceptible to the knockout because of the fact that he's so drained. And we do know JDM is a very good puncher, but he's a combination puncher. He's an accurate puncher, and he's, not quite a volume puncher, but works in combination. He's not the power one-hitter quitter that Ilia Topuria is. So, because there's such what I think will be a pretty noticeable difference in who Islam is in that weight class, or what degree of physical durability he enjoys in one class versus the other, it's a little hard to say. But to the point you raised, coming from Australia, could I be talked into JDM actually being the tougher fight? Sure, I could. Sure. I think JDM... Dude, if JDM punches his lights out, would not surprise me by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, part of what makes this exciting is, what is Islam going to be at 70? I'm looking forward to finding out.
It's going to be fascinating, because a big part of Islam's game plan will obviously be the grappling, right? So we're going to see, what does Islam look like when he's not cutting the weight? Because there could be a couple of scenarios. It could be a scenario where he's maybe a little bit stronger, maybe he's a little bit faster, maybe he's got a little bit more energy. Or there could be a scenario where, oh no, he's a little bit undersized for the weight class. Oh no, the guys are a little bit stronger than him. How do you anticipate Islam will implement his grappling here in order to win this fight, because there really is no way that he can just stand on the feet and beat JDM here. Like that would be a disaster if he's just stuck standing in front of him for 5 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, dude, listen, Bilal has a lot of tricks and a lot of them didn't work. Some of them did. But he's different than Islam. Okay, so let's talk about that. So one of the things that I think I brought this up on this program a number of times before, but just to make a short recap, one of the things that made Khabib a very, very dynamic takedown threat, in my estimation, is that a lot of times what you'll see is guys have takedowns that they adapt from the particular style in which they come from. So, Ronda Rousey would use judo throws. Chris Weidman would use a lot of folk style or, traditional wrestling, hip and leg attacks. I mean, he had more than that too, but, a lot of it is derivative of the composite sport from which they come. And, Khabib used stuff from Sambo, but the way in which he employed it in MMA was highly unique, at least for the time in which he was doing it. Because if he had to go to traditional leg and hip attacks, level changing into things, he could do it. If he had to do more Greco upper body, body lock stuff with or without the underhook, he could do it. But what was much more interesting was along the fence line, 2 things would also happen. One, he would be able to use trips as well as foot sweeps or at least challenging the balance of someone in a way where he's combining different kinds of disparate elements of grappling all into one in terms of a single takedown threat. So it's not just that he's chaining it together, but the fact that he can harass the balance and he can trip and he can throw and he can do leg and hip attacks. He's able to call from many different takedown styles and schools and disciplines into a singular one. More to the point, along the fence itself, and this is something that I want your viewers to remember what I'm about to tell them, if nothing else. The next time you watch a fighter try to take another fighter down and they're up against the fence, pay attention to the amount of opportunities or what they're able to do to advance that forward. And what you'll commonly see is, they'll go from the single to the double or the double to the single. They'll go from, upper body and then just quickly level change down to the ground. I don't care about any of that. What I mean is, how do they harass their balance and do they run them in space? Khabib Nurmagomedov I watched a tutorial that he made for BJJ Fanatics. He was adamant, if you have somebody, particularly off of a single leg, but you can do it in a few different contexts, if you have them up against the fence, you cannot let them sit there and stay still. You have to run them side to side, because when they move, they are going to adjust their balance in a way that opens up takedowns. And at a bare minimum, as they move, in particular on their steps, they become lighter as you can time. You catch them, right? They become lighter in that moment. You have to move them. You have to harass their balance. Alexandre Pantoja against Kaya Sakura was able to use that Kosoto hook, which is a Craig Jones staple, by the way, pulling him off the fence and then using that to then advance the attack. A guy like Justin Flores, who is the coach of Ronda Rousey, who has something called Wall Waza, where rather than trying to do all the traditional things, and he doesn't run them in space necessarily, but he's got all different kinds of ways to harass their balance to make them move, with using retrofitting judo for modern MMA. So the point I'm trying to make about Islam is he's not exactly Khabib in that sense, but he can do all of that stuff. He also can do body locks. He also can level change for leg and hip attacks. He also has throws. He also has foot sweeps. And along the fence, he will harass your balance or to an extent run you in space. And that's just not a thing competently that hardly any fighters can do. And Bilal's not one of those guys either. Bilal's got a lot of tricks. He's got a lot of tricks. Please don't misunderstand me. He's good. But Islam represents a very, very different threat. And more to that point, if he is able to capture your back, he is a genuine submission threat, right? Bilal is not. Islam is. Islam very much is. So you might be right that he's undersized, and Jack's takedown defense looked amazing against Bilal at UFC 315. I see so many people saying Bilal chose to wrestle. Man, please shut the fuck up forever. It is yes. Could Bilal have wrestled more? Yes. He might come out and say in his next interview, I should have wrestled more. That is true. It's not an either or proposition, but The reality is he actually tried way more than the narrative around it worked, and or the more than the narrative around it suggests. And he encountered a JDM who had massively leveled up. There's no denying it. I mean, people are out of their minds misreading this. But to wrap this all up on this long-winded answer, I can imagine JDM is going to be a real significant threat for Islam, but Islam is a takedown threat unlike any JDM has faced, matter-of-factly.
Man, I can't wait for this fight. Just quickly, if we take Islam out of the picture, because when I was talking to JDM's coach, he basically said, "Look, I predict we knock out Islam Makhachev." I was watching the footage between Islam and Dustin Poirier. Islam doesn't like to get hit. I think we're going to take him out. And then he sort of went on to break that down, and people can check that out on the channel. He thinks the real threat is some of the 170 contenders that are waiting for JDM after Islam, right? My question to you is, if we take Islam to the side, because I believe Islam is a big threat, but let's take him to the side for a second. Who do you think out of the 170 contenders is the biggest threat to JDM?
Man, that is a tough one. A tough one. Probably not Ian Gary. Not yet, anyway. That could change, but as it stands today, not Ian Gary. I think Joaquin Buckley is probably something of a dark horse candidate. Wouldn't be my top one, but we'll see. We'll see. I think the two that I would be most focused in on would be Shavkat Rakhmonov and Sean Brady. I think those two, to me, are kind of interesting. Rakhmonov is hittable, but he's got a lot of fucking tricks, a lot of them. And I think I know he didn't turn in the best performance against Ian Gary. I really think he was hobbled for that. I think you're going to get a significantly better version of that next time you see him. Who that's against, I don't know, but he's dynamic in the clinch at range. He can be, and he's a finishing threat. I mean, holy shit, right? That's what he does. Sean Brady, to me, obviously, he got pieced up by Bilal, but I think he is massively improved on the feet since then. And while not anyway a threat to JDM on the feet, certainly not long term, a super serious threat otherwise. And he, in that Leon fight, really showed you a wide arsenal of takedowns. He hit a Sasai, he hit a single leg, he hit a broomstick sweep, he hit a double. He has numbers of ways to get you to the floor, and he is a no bullshit submission threat. I mean, that is an absolute sheet of ice on top of you. He's, it's one thing to scramble against Bilal, who's tough to scramble against. And I'm not saying JDM couldn't do it, but you're asking like biggest threat. That those two guys to me, they're going to be tough to beat. JDM can do it, but not going to be easy.
The other portion of this whole Islam JDM thing is I always just thought Islam was going to fight JDM, and if he wins, he's going to win that belt and then come back down and fight Ilia if Ilia beats Charles, and they still do the super fight, and it's still a big deal, right? Then I was talking to Ali Abdelaziz, who said that basically Islam is done at lightweight. Obviously, he's vacated the belt, and he just wants to focus on welterweight. What do you think? Do you believe what Ali's saying, or do you actually think the UFC, because this is one of the biggest fights ever, right? Ilia and Islam, and if Ilia becomes the lightweight champion and Islam wins, that still adds, there's still almost more interest if Ilia goes out there and knocks out Charles Oliveira, right, and becomes the lightweight champion. Do you believe
there might be more
make this happen?
Yeah, there might be more market interest, but I actually believe Ali here. I think that okay, so if Islam goes and gets absolutely waxed by JDM in some kind of, first round beatdown and just loses terribly, that might change the equation. But short of that, I don't think I'll say this, unless he really has to, I don't think he goes back to 55 either. Dude, that cut is brutal, man. It's brutal. It's brutal on that dude. And he's getting older. I don't think he wants to fight too much longer. I don't think he wants to cut weight any more than he has to. So, I mean, I don't deny that the fight could be bigger under the scenario you posited, right? They both win. Oh my God, let's make it. Sure. In that sense, it would be a big box office attraction. But, a big part of this was he was just, I think, done with cutting weight in that. I mean, he'll still have to cut some, obviously, but, not that much, relatively speaking. And I think that's such a, honestly, the number one component is getting a second title in another weight class and MMA immortality to a degree. But right behind that is going to be cutting weight. No question in my mind.
Well, that's just setting it for me now. Look, that means we may never get this Ilia Islam fight. So if this fight just never happens, what? Where does this rank as one of the, like, this has to be on the list of top 5, at least top 10 biggest fights that never happen, right?
Like I said, it's always going to be big when you don't have a number 1 and number 2 fight when they probably could or even should have. But Islam is certainly one of the bigger names in MMA, but I don't know if he's quite the name that Khabib was. In fact, I'm certain he's not. And Ilia is obviously blowing up, seems like day by day. Did you see him in the NFL ad? Because the NFL is going to go to Madrid, Spain, and they had fucking Ilia Topuria wearing a Washington Commanders jersey. I'm like, dude, my worlds keep colliding. They're going to play at the Santiago Bernabeu where Real Madrid plays. You got a UFC fighter wearing a Washington Commanders jersey. Like, holy fucking shit, you know?
How are you not in that ad?
Everybody hates me. Let's be honest about that.
I don't hate you, man.
A lot do. That's all right. I bring it on myself. I'm cool with it. But the point I'm trying to make is Ilia is not a household name yet either, right? So when we talk about like the biggest ones to get away, there needs to be a degree of promotional circumstance. And again, it's a huge fight, but is it a historically huge fight? I don't think it's a historically huge fight. No, not on a promotional level. From a legitimacy level or what role it could play as an important moment in MMA on a sporting level, it's very big. But to the question you're asking, I think it has to have some of that as well as some promotional muscle beyond. You know, these are relatively big names in MMA, but star power is down more broadly. You know, it's like, you know, if one of the other big fights to get away was GSP versus Anderson Silva when they were massive pay-per-view stars, or like a Brock versus Fedor, this is not that. It's GSP Silva in a different sense, sort of, in terms of legitimacy, but it's not what they meant as massive MMA stars. No.
I feel like it takes on a life of its own, though, if Ilia becomes the lightweight champion, gets a few defenses, and, you know, obviously Islam's one of the best lightweight champions of all time, and then it becomes like a legacy thing of like, well, what would have happened if, like, when people start, if let's say Ilia gets 5 defenses, for example, it's going to be a situation where it's like, well, was Islam real? You know what I mean? You know how MMA fans are. Was Islam really the greatest when he didn't fight this guy? And I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But I just find it interesting because Ali was talking about legacy and obviously nothing bigger than winning 2 belts. But also at the same time, Ilia is a real, I guess, question mark for people if he does keep winning to Islam's lightweight legacy, because they're always going to talk about what would have happened.
And also worse for Ilia is that his first fight is against Charles Oliveira. And what I mean by that is Islam fought him and wrecked him. And so even if Topuria goes in there and, you know, absolutely destroys him, people are going to say, oh, yeah, but you got a 35-year-old, you know, he got beat by Saryukian at that point. Islam dispatched him. You got like damaged goods. You know, they're going to undermine it in some kind of a way. He's going to have to beat other names of consequence and value far beyond that to level up and match what, you know, even though there are questions about Islam's resume 55 to a degree, you know, he's already starting from an unenviable place relative to that particular consideration you're raising.
Just quickly want to jump to the other big fight, DDP versus Khamzat, right? Now, I saw Imavov is the backup for that fight. So my question to you, Luke, is, are we going to be getting DDP Khamzat, or are we going to be getting DDP Imavov with, we know, unfortunately, some of the issues that Khamzat has had in the past in making it to his fights?
I think we're going to get it. I think Khamzat is in a better place physically for the most part. I think that, you know, I had concerns when the first time the Whitaker fight fell through, but then the second time came and he looked like flying colors. And again, the next one could be a disaster too. We don't really know. But listen, I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic. I think that unless there's a specific reason closer to fight time to get concerned, I'm just not going to pay attention to it.
All right, guys, before I get back to the interview, I just want to thank my sponsor, MANSCAPE, for making this program possible. Did you guys know with the code word submission, you guys could save 15% off. That's 15% off plus free shipping from all of the great products on the Manscaped website. But I want to talk to you guys about the Chairman Pro. The Chairman Pro is a high-tech, data-approved grooming upgrade, which is perfect for the Father's Day over there in America. But if it's not Father's Day, it is an electric face shaver that can tackle up to 5 days of growth and features 2 interchangeable blade heads. It's waterproof. The battery life is awesome, up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, but it also showcases the battery level so you know when it's time to recharge with a display. Of course, it's got the travel lock, the LED spotlight, and most importantly, the 2-year warranty the Manscaped comes with. Manscaped, of course, has the Lawnmower 5.0, the Beard Hedger, and all sorts of other products. Some of the most comfortable underwear out there as well. So go to manscaped.com, use the code word submission, get 15% off and free shipping today. And guys, I also want to talk to you about our friends at SAILY. That's right, SAILY, the best eSIM on the market today. What is an eSIM? Let's say you're traveling, you need to make phone calls, you need to download data, you need to be able to use your phone. Don't line up in a stupid queue and replace your SIM card, lose your current SIM card, and sign up to some plan that lasts for months. Use SAILY today. You just have to download the app. You just choose the location where you're at. You choose the amount of data that you want, and you are sorted, my friend, to use your phone wherever you go, whatever country you go to. It's easy to use. Like I said, all you need to do is just download the app. You avoid roaming costs, never ran out of data because you're able to update it and increase it wherever you go. It's one eSIM for all of your trips, so you don't have to change SIMs everywhere you go. And it's got global and regional plans as well. Get up to 100 gigabytes of data or as little as 1 gigabyte of data for a week or half a year. SAILY is your place to go for everybody out there who's looking for an eSIM. So download the SAILY app now and use the code submission or go to saily.com/submission. The link is in the description below and you guys get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. That's 15% off your first purchase. Try SAILY today. And now back to the program.
I'm being serious, like almost like an ignorance is bliss kind of thing. Let's just wait till we get close to fight time and then, fingers crossed. Seriously.
So Imavov is in this position, right? He's the backup, and we saw Ian Gary take that spot as well with this welterweight fight. But obviously, RDR is on fire at the moment. He's got this Robert Whittaker fight coming up. Do you believe that Imavov is really going to be next? Let's say the fellas fight. If RDR goes out there and beats Robert Whittaker next, do you think RDR might be the next guy to fight for the belt? And Imavov might have to take a fight in between. We've got Kaya Bahayo hanging around.
Yeah, the Kaio part makes it a little harder to say yes, you're right. So probably not. I think the winner of Whittaker and RDR might end up fighting Kaio, or, there could be. It just seems to me that like beating Whittaker is a very, very big deal, but it's probably not the big deal it was, 2 years ago. So just that alone might not be enough to get a title shot. It could. I mean, they're probably just weighing their options. You've got Kaio, who's sort of in this maybe kind of sort of no man's land. You've got, as you mentioned, Imavov, who's in the, maybe the next up seat. And then you got the winner of this RDR and Whittaker thing. So let's say RDR wins. If RDR wins super impressively and he just looks like $1 million and it's so fun, you might be tempted to be like, well, yeah, Khamzat did that to him. We've seen this movie. But at the same time, it could just lift him past all of them. It really could. But if it doesn't do that, which I don't, that's not the likeliest way that it goes. I tend to think there's probably that and then maybe one more he'll have to win. Yeah.
I just love RDR and him being in the division. He's so fun. He's so game. He's exciting to watch. He's just ready to go, and he just wants the biggest challenges. I spoke to RDR, and he told me, look, I've trained with Khamzat. I've trained with DDP, and he kind of broke down the fact that I feel like I have the keys to beat both of these guys, and I feel like it's a matter of time until I fight them. Now that we saw RDR sort of come into his own with the Bo Nickel fight and everything is coming together, do you think that this guy might be the guy that can potentially challenge a Khamzat or a DDP for the title?
RDR?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know.
Something about him, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about RDR is, he's so freaking skilled. He's so freaking skilled. And the truth is, man, those 2 losses on his resume were to freaking Anatoly Malakin. Like, that fight should have never even, like, one was just trying to do what they could with RDR, and that was a bridge too far, right? Malakin is just this, beast up at heavyweight. Like, it didn't make a lot of sense, but they were just doing their, heavyweight. Well, they have a cruiserweight division at 1 too, but they were trying to cross pollinate weight classes with whatever star power that they had, and it just didn't work. But he's a tremendous addition to that roster. He's breathing fresh life into it. I guess the place I come down on it is that, like, man, I can't tell with Khamzat whether or not the Gilbert Burns fight is indicative of his future or something that he just had to get past to become a greater version of himself. And what I mean by that is, yeah, he's always going to be in your face and aggressive. Like, that's just who he is. But there was a recklessness that set in that fight over time. And you might say, well, he kind of faded down the stretch against Usman a little bit, which is also true. But I feel like he's still getting a lot better and he's still cleaning it up. And his A game is just a nightmare for people to deal with. It's just so good that I really need to see how DDP handles it before I can even answer how RDR would match up against it. RDR, a very different fighter, obviously, than DDP, but just getting more information about maybe some tendencies or things that affect Khamzat during the course of a bout. I just don't feel like I have enough information to make super specific declarations in a way that, with DDP, you got a little bit more of a sense. Now, he's also a bit of a wild card in that way. The RDR against DDP is an interesting one to me because, Khamzat might be physically more imposing than RDR too, but I feel like DDP would have a physical advantage over RDR as well. However, RDR, I think, would be more able to take advantage of some of DDP's mistakes than some other opponents might be able to, right? Like, in a technical sense, he might be something of a bad matchup because RDR doesn't mind inviting certain forms of contact, but he does it for very specific reasons, because if they don't work for the opponent, he's got, carte blanche is not maybe the best way to put it, but a whole world opens of offense that he can just lean into, and he loves that. He also likes guys who bring the pressure. I think he performs, Malakin, again, is the exception that proves the rule here, but he likes aggressive opponents. He likes, guys who, again, Khamzat is like that on turbo. So it sounds like I'm saying it applies to both. Khamzat to me still is a little bit different, but I could see RDR beating DDP. I mean, again, RDR might be able to beat both of them, but I'm saying, to me, the more interesting fight based on what we know is RDR DDP. But the more anticipated is, for me, like, honestly, of all those fights they announced yesterday, I know you're Australian, so it's maybe a little bit different, but for me, the most interesting one that got announced yesterday was the DDP Khamzat fight. Like, dude, that fight to me is electricity times 1,000, and I don't really know what to expect from that one. I don't know. I mean, Khamzat's going to shoot. He's probably going to get DDP's back. He's probably going to have it for a few minutes. But after that, I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't know. So this is what I mean about trying to game plan or to prognosticate about where things match up with Khamzat. But I can just say, I'm maybe I'll say it this way. I'm very interested in RDR DDP down the road for sure.
It's a good problem to have. I'm excited as well. I can't believe we're getting such a fun fight at middleweight. I feel like RDR is a great addition, makes things even more exciting. And it's good to see some new blood and some new matchups, whatever happens in this fight. Last question for me, Movsar. I was talking to Ali. He said Movsar is likely to have another fight. He's not going to get a title shot next. If Movsar is not getting a title shot next, I think a lot of us think that he deserves this title shot and it kind of should be the next fight. But if he's not getting the title shot next, what does this mean? What, like, Yair is going to fight Alex Volkanovski?
Yeah.
Who's Alex Volkanovski?
Right?
Yeah. Is that what the angle is? And if that's the case, do you reckon that that's the way to go?
I don't. Well, oh, Jesus. See, I didn't hear that about Movsar. That's interesting. Because Movsar is the guy, right? Like, he deserves it. I think all of us can.
And Volkanovski spoke to the fact, he wants to take his own. Like, it's not like Alex doesn't want to fight him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a tough fight. It's a different kind of tough fight, but it's a tough fight. Man, if it's not, I don't know who else it would. Who are we missing in the contendership queue that would even be relevant? Like, it can't be Ortega. He's even too far down. Lopez just lost. Max is gone. Who are we forgetting that's even there?
Can't be John Silva. Surely he has to fight one more time.
Yeah. He's not close enough. Who else? Bryce is not there. Right? Are we forgetting somebody? Who are we forgetting? Look up the list here because obviously our brains are not working. Maybe.
No, well, I'm having a look here and
read me the top 5.
Max Holloway, Diego Lopez, Ilia Topuria, Movsar, Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah,
Arnold
so there you go. Yeah, so it sounds like he's fighting Yair
Murphy. It's not Lon Murphy. Let me tell you that much. Can you imagine?
Hey,
he's probably fighting
Murphy's a good fighter.
Next. He's probably fighting. I know. Well, he's probably fighting Movsar next.
Right. They're probably going to do that. So yeah, it looks like Yair. Dude, that Yair, fight. I guess they're going to do Yair too. First fight wasn't very close. I went back and I watched that fight the first time, and for the first time they fought, and Volk beat the shit out of him. He really he beat him literally everywhere. Okay, but they got to sell something in Mexico, so there you go. This is what I always try to tell people: like meritocracy. How much does it matter? It matters a lot. Like you got to win. Like for the most part, you got to win. You got to win a lot. But after that, who's available? And after that, who's a star? And then after that, who's a star in a market that we need to develop? Like these are all part of the equation when you're putting fights behind a paywall. Yeah, for sure. It's probably going to be him in Mexico. Mm-hmm.
Not a bad time for Aaron Pico to join the division. All right, Luke, as we wrap up.
He's got work to do, though. Let's see how he looks.
Who even knows what is going to happen in this division? Well, they might just throw him. I don't even know where they're going to. Anyway, doesn't matter. As we wrap up, the Substack is cooking. You got some exclusive content coming out. You were just shooting some stuff when it comes to all sorts of things. Break it down for me. What's coming up? What can people check out?
I still have 2 breakdowns I have to get out on my YouTube channel for both. I'm doing a piece because it's driving me insane hearing. Again, it's not an either or. But people being like, oh, the reason why the fight went the way that it went with Bilal and JDM is because Bilal elected over the course of 25 minutes. Like it was like the entire equation is just his choice. Oh my God, please.
I heard you on Morning Combat. I can't wait to hear the full break.
It drives me insane. So I have a breakdown coming out about that, plus a one on RDR about some of the stuff that he did that went right for him against Bo Nickel and maybe what lessons we can take from that. So I'll have the one on JDM first because I cannot overstate it. JDM had specific things he had to work on, and he did, and he fucking did. So that was tremendous. And then for people who want MMA content and beyond, the Substack, Luke Thomas on Substack or lthomas.substack.com. I gotta make up a better.
Dude, I love it. There's all sorts of content. Make sure you check that out. And of course, Morning Combat with you and DC. You guys absolutely kill it every week. Luke Thomas, thank you so much for joining me, man.
There it is. Thank you.